drugs going?
I never knew. I don't know. I swear to God.
Swear to me!
Hi, this is Michael Uslan. You're listening to Batman on Film.
Talking about the tales where the shadows crawl. Chapter by chapter, we've covered it all. From the capes and cows to the darkest night. Every film, every fight, a fan's delight. Turn the page, Gotham's glory awaits. Batman on film, where legends create. Oh, we ride through the Gotham skies. From the bat's rise to the villain's eyes. Turn the reels, where the story is fried. I'm Batman on film, the legends alive. Break down the madness, scene by scene, where the city's pulse and dark dreams convene. From the old to the new, the saga unfolds. A vigilante sail in the echoing cold. Step into Gotham where justice turns. Through words and whispers, the bat returns. Oh, we ride through the Gotham skies. From the bat's rise to the villain's eyes. Turn the reels where the story is bright. I'm Batman on film, the legend's alive. In the shadow of the night, tales untold. Pages turn as the saga unfolds. Join the journey in this timeless quest. Batman on film stands above the rest. Oh, we ride through the Gotham skies. From the bat's rise to the villain's eyes. Turn the reels where the story is bright. I'm Batman on film, the legend's alive.
Welcome to Chapter 8 of Batman Begins, Chapter by Chapter, a Batman on Film podcast, celebrating the 20th anniversary of Christopher Nolan's game-changing film. I'm senior contributor Javi Trujillo, and joining me today is a fellow contributor to BOF, a man who can find the dark patterns on the first night, Trey Jackson. What's up, sir?
Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate the dark pattern shout out right at the beginning. What a great book that is. But glad to be here.
I gotta confess, I'm a little behind on reading your reviews on that because I'm a little behind on the series. Yeah. I've been doing it in basically just reading it by story arc. So I read like the first three, then I read the next three, which is the Scarface, and now I just need to squirrel away some time to read the next three in succession. But
well, Javi, it's not like you don't have anything else to do, you know.
Right? Yeah.
The three issue structure, I gotta say, I love that. I think that's just about right. I would like to see that, happen in more monthly books, honestly, because I think that's a pretty good length to get to kind of flesh a story out, but then just move right through it and move on to the next one.
Like I'm reviewing Batman and Robin right now, and while I've been loving every issue that Philip Kennedy Johnson's written, I will admit that the first story arc, which is really two story arcs, is a little long because it doesn't feel like there's any demarcation of when the one story ended and the next one began. It just felt like more of the same story. And the new one just came out like a week or two ago, and that feels like a fresh start. But I think, there is something to having that beginning, middle, end done. It's just it's the perfect length to expand on it, but then not get too like drawn out and, where you start to get pacing issues and everything.
Yeah, and that's not to say that you can't, have a classic that's 12 issues long. You certainly
Right,
can.
right.
But
Hush. Sorry,
yes.
Bill. The Long Halloween.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
But those are events, and they don't feel like events if everything is these long drawn out
Right.
arcs. So something a little bit more quicker pace for people to just hop in. I think it's a good way to go. I'd like to see more of that. So, but Dark Patterns has been phenomenal. Check it out. Read my reviews. I'll go ahead and plug that now. I'll plug it again at the end if you want me to.
Oh yeah, sure. And we're recording this a few days before Batman Day 2025. Do you have any plans for Batman Day? Are you going to go to the shop? You going to buy anything specifically?
I haven't even thought about that. I've been busy with other stuff. I will say, we're big Lego fans in my house. I've got kids that love actual Legos and Lego video games. That upcoming Lego Batman
Oh
game
my
is
God.
all
Yeah.
all the rage right now. So I need to. I don't remember when that's coming out, but that's. I'm told that that's a day one purchase for my house. Even if I wasn't planning on doing it, it's been
Yeah.
demanded, which I'm fine with that. So that's the thing that's on the horizon that I know I'm picking up when
I
it
think
comes
it's
out.
2026.
I think so,
But yeah, I'm with you on that.
mhm.
I don't think I've gotten any of the Lego Batman games day one,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna do that for this one for sure.
Yeah, this one feels more significant. It's got, more of the Arkham influence, and it seems like, I mean, the very first one did a great job celebrating Batman's history, but this one
Yeah.
is even more intentionally so. I'm looking forward to what they do with that.
And I think changing up the gameplay too is like that's gonna be, what's gonna define it from the other one. Because what was it? Beyond Gotham, I had to look on my shelf.
Yeah.
Where it has like some space stuff and everything, but that one really fleshes out like the DC universe and because that had like tons of different Batman skins you could wear, like the Dark Knight Returns and
Yeah.
I think Green Lantern Batman, and then even like a Dark Knight level.
Yeah. It seemed like after the first Lego Batman game, they kind of turned more into DC universe. You can
Yeah.
slap Batman on it and get more, get more eyeballs that way. But yeah, it's more of a larger, DC world, which is fine. But going back to a celebration of specifically Batman, I think will go over really well. So looking forward to see how that goes.
Yeah, no, I'm completely jazzed for it. And just seeing the trailer with like Pattinson and
Mhm.
reenacting the Batman scene, but in Lego form, like that was just fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hopefully it'll live up to the hype.
hmm
So as this is your first time on this particular chapter by chapter, I've got a few questions for you.
All right.
So before we dive into the episode proper, tell me about your first experience of seeing Batman Begins. Where and when did you first see it?
Well, I've kind of I hope my Batman fan card doesn't get taken away after I tell this story.
Uh-oh.
So, I graduated high school in 2005, and so I had a lot going on leading up, through the production leading up to that summer. And I'll confess I was not really paying a whole lot of attention to the development of this movie. And it wasn't because I wasn't a Batman fan. I was, I I think what it was, thinking back, is when I first read about it, I got one of those erroneous reports that it was looking like a prequel, and that kind of made me less interested. Like, if that's what you're going to do, then okay, I'll eventually check it out, but I'd rather see this go somewhere else. So I totally missed out because I just wasn't reading BOF every day like I should have been. so that that plus, it being senior year of high school, trying to, figure out where am I going to school and moving out, figuring all that stuff out. And oh, and our pal Pete will appreciate this. That 2004, fall of 2004, is also when a little game called Halo 2 came out. I don't know. Are you familiar with this, Javi?
I think I've heard of it once or twice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I will also admit that a lot of my fandom, like, mental space was taken up by Halo for those few months. I'll admit to that. And that went on through college, probably, not for the best, because I probably didn't do as well at school as I should have because of that. But so leading up to when Begins was coming out in summer of 05, I knew there was a Batman movie coming out, but I really did not have a whole lot of ideas about what it's going to be, what to expect, anything like that. So when it actually did get released that summer, I believe the week it was released, actually, I was on a short-term mission trip with my church. What we would do is we would fly out to San Diego and cross the border into Mexico, and we would partner with an organization in Mexico and build houses for people. And
Okay.
when I say houses, these are like the kind of thing you could slap together in a week,
Like Habitat for Humanities or different?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was an organization like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a short-term thing. So we go out there and you go, down into Mexico. You basically are camping on site for about 4 days while you put this thing together. Then you come back across the border, you hang out in San Diego for a day, then you fly home. So that was, what I was doing the week this movie got released. So when we go back across the border and are in San Diego, you basically got to do whatever you wanted for the day. And the options were like, do you want to go see a Padres game? Do you want to go to like the world renowned San Diego Zoo? Do you want to go, check out the downtown area? I was fortunate enough that the guy leading the trip, the youth minister, was a big Batman fan. And he was like, hey, buddy, everybody's going to go do these like amazing things. Here's what me and you are going to go do. We're going to go see a new Batman movie. And I was like, oh, yeah, I kind of almost forgot about that. So my first experience seeing it was having no idea what I was walking into in a theater in San Diego and being blown away by how awesome it was, and it being such a wonderful surprise because I had not really followed any of the development of the movie, didn't really know what I was walking into. So that was my first memory. And as soon as I saw it and got home, I immediately wanted to learn everything I could about how it had been come together, when the sequel was happening, everything like that. That's when I found BOF and started reading BOF at least once a day, usually multiple times a day. So that's my Begins story for what it's worth.
That's awesome. And it's like, I don't know if you've kept up on like the news, but like Christian Bale right now he's been really involved in this charity called Together California.
Yeah.
Like building like a foster care home
Mhm.
in Palmdale, I think.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that you went to go build houses and then saw Christian Bale's Batman. And here we are 20 years later, and Christian Bale is building homes for people roughly the same part of the world where you saw the movie for the first time.
Yeah, he's a hero in real life. So yeah, I
It's all
thought that was a pretty cool
connected.
story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course it's all connected.
So how where does it fall amongst your favorites of all the live actions?
This is a tough one.
Yeah.
I love the trilogy, and to be totally honest, my favorite Batman movie is usually whichever Nolan trilogy movie I watched most recently. So I know that's kind of a cop out. Those three, I have trouble. Honestly, I have trouble thinking of them as like three separate movies that could be ranked against each other, because it all seems like one pretty cohesive story. If you're gonna make me pick, I do like The Dark Knight the best. So really, to me, I guess it would come down to Rises or Begins. They both have things I love. Rises, I was really invested in the development leading up to it, and it did meet expectations for me. So if I absolutely had to rank the trilogy, it would be Dark Knight, then Rises, then Begins. But I love all of them. And as much as I've loved, Pattinson's The Batman, it it hasn't it hasn't moved any of those out of the top three spots for me.
I can understand that perspective. I mean, it's like saying which issue of the first three of Dark Patterns is your favorite issue. It's like, well, it's
Yeah.
all one story,
Yeah.
and that's that. I mean, with the way the trilogy is constructed, especially when you get to Rises, there are so many like callbacks that bring everything full circle that it really does feel like a one cohesive narrative.
Well, and I think so. Begins, like I said, I loved it when I first saw it. I loved it, every time I watched it since then. Rises and what it did actually even elevated Begins a little bit more to me. Like to see how they paid off some of the things that were set
Yeah.
up in Begins. But that's why I think of Rises as being as great as it is. And I know people have their issues with Rises and what it did or didn't do, but I think for the story they were trying to tell, for and seeing how hard it is to just deliver a good end to a trilogy, I thought Rises really met that bar for me. But retroactively, it made me, go back and appreciate Begins even more. I love how all three movies work together as a whole story.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't go wrong with any of these three, in my opinion. So,
No, no, you can't.
well, for today's episode, we are looking at what we've designated as Chapter 8, Swear to Me, which starts at the 1 hour, 8 minute, 39 second mark and runs till 1 hour, 19 minutes, and 51 seconds. So, Trey, are you ready to begin?
I'm in better shape than Bruce was when he got to the top of the mountain. Yes, I'm ready to begin.
All right. So we kick off this chapter with a hotel scene. Bruce arrives at a fancy hotel in a sports car with a beautiful woman on each arm. He joins a table where the topic of conversation is the Batman, and we see him demonstrate his public playboy persona as he brushes off the bat as crazy and buys a hotel when the staff complain about Bruce's dates swimming in the decorative pool. What do you think, Trey, of his public Bruce Wayne? This is the first time we're getting to see it, really.
Yeah, rewatching the movie, you kind of got hints of it when he first showed up at Wayne Enterprises and was, kind of flirting with the secretary a little bit. So it seemed like he was kind of laying the groundwork there.
Mhm.
But that was before Alfred had made it clear to him, like, you gotta really play this up. So yeah, this scene is where he really, we really see him play that up. Overplay it really for the first
Yeah.
time. I think he does such a great job. Christian Bale just is phenomenal in this role because he has this kind of range. I mean, you've seen this guy, to see where he's come from, like basically from a solitary confinement in a jail cell, halfway around the world to this, and he's just playing it all pretty effortlessly to me. But when you're the audience, where he's coming from and why he's doing this. I will say that as I've gotten a little bit older and watched this movie more and more, when he goes into public Bruce Wayne, especially when he's at his house later and he's pretending to be drunk and trying to get everybody out, those scenes are getting harder and harder to watch because I want to step in to the rest of the people in the scene and be like, no, you guys don't understand. He's the hero. He's saving your lives. Like, he's not a jerk. But he has to do that for the reasons that Alfred details in the scene before. So he does a great job with it. I do, like I said, sometimes I still feel a little bad for him that he has to do that, but he does a great job with something that he just has to do.
And we haven't really seen him portrayed this way before in live action. Because I mean, Adam West was definitely doing his own thing where he was he was very civic minded, and really there wasn't too much of a difference between his Bruce Wayne and his Batman, at least when it came to like his relationship with Dick. He was always like that mentor figure, and make sure you drink all your milk and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Keaton was like quirky and absent-minded. Like we did see him get involved in like city stuff in the second movie, but he didn't really have that playboy persona that Bale brings here. And Kilmer just kind of kept it in that keel of, he would be out in public, but he was business minded, he was intelligent, he didn't have the a woman on each arm and pretending to be drunk in public kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Clooney was just, Clooney is like the real life Bruce Wayne to begin with. So, he wasn't really doing much. He was doing his ER head bob and marriage.
Yeah. So with Keaton, because I agree with you about West, he when he played Bruce Wayne, he never played him as like, I'm out here just causing, just sowing wild oats or being ridiculous. Or anything like
he was
that.
a stand-up citizen, just like Batman was.
Honestly, with Keaton, like I think back to the scene in '89 where there's a party in his house, and he's just like got eyes on Vicky Vale and is like setting his drink down, and Alfred is trying to, and it's like, I don't know if that absent-mindedness is an act or not, because it seems like he's just this just gets that focused on whatever he's paying attention to. So you're right. It's not really played up. His Bruce Wayne persona is not really played up in any of the other movies. I guess Clooney, he had that one line where, they're showing off that telescope and he's like, don't point it in my bedroom. So, you get little hints of that, but even in like the animated series, that's where I remember Conroy would do a very distinct Bruce Wayne voice versus Batman voice. And his Bruce Wayne was he kind of played him as a little bit naive, but not, a guy who's going to go out and get wasted like Bale is doing here. So yeah, this is, kind of the first time we see that, and Bale just really sells it really well, which is why it's so important to cast him, to move the character in this direction and carry him forward from what had been done before.
What's funny to me about this scene while they're all sitting around talking about Batman is like, it's not the same scene, but it always makes me think of Year One when everyone gets together at that table and Batman blows down the wall.
Yeah.
And, says his, you've eaten well stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why it makes me think that, other than it's just a whole bunch of people talking about Batman at a table, because it's not the same cast. Falcone's not there, and the other mob bosses, Loeb's not there, but
yeah,
it always makes me think of it.
But it is the same. It's the same kind of spirit where it's a group of people getting together who have no idea that they just are so disconnected from the consequences of their actions for the people that are actually affected. And I didn't look up the actress's name, but the woman in this scene, the kind of the accent she puts on, and she just, the way her inflections and her tone is just so perfect for like an out of touch high society. I'm just, out on the town, having a good old time. And she's like defending Batman, but she's not defending him for any kind of principled reason. It's just like, she finds him really entertaining. and that's what stands out to her. So yeah, the people in this scene, they're kind of, it is kind of like that Year One scene where they're so disconnected from the reality of Gotham City and that at that time. And it's that juxtaposition is supposed to be that drastic, because we've seen, by this point in the movie, we've seen the Narrows, we've seen what's actually going on, and what a contrast between that and this, very exclusive fancy hotel is supposed to be that drastic.
And yeah, I didn't know this when I first saw it, but the woman that you're talking about is Lucy Russell. She played the blonde. That's
Mhm.
her character's name in Nolan's first film, Following.
Okay. Okay.
So the I don't remember. It had to have been after 2012 when I finally saw Following. It had a Criterion Blu-ray, and I was like, "Oh, that's the lady from Batman Begins from the scene." And then you get to the end of the movie, and there's a cop. I'm like, "Oh, that's the guy that's in all three movies that works at Wayne Enterprises."
Hmm.
And it turns out that's John Nolan. That's Chris Nolan's uncle. So that's why he's in all these
Yeah.
movies. But
He's got his go-tos, and that works for
yeah,
him. It's been a few years since I've seen Following. I need to go back and check it out again. I remember it being pretty good, but it's
yeah,
been a while, so I couldn't say much about it other than it's a Nolan movie, probably going to be good. So
yeah. No, it's definitely a very solid first film. You can see where, how he later evolves into like Memento and then obviously Batman Begins.
yeah,
As Bruce and his dates leave, he bumps into Rachel, who is on her way in. We don't know who she's going to see or why she's there, but she's dressed up. And this is their first interaction as Bruce and Rachel in the present. So, talk to me about the contrast between how Bruce acts when he saw her the prior night as Batman compared to the sheepish Bruce that we see here.
well, it really, you can tell when his face kind of drops. He's like a kid who's been caught. He's like, I could put on this act and I get why I've got to do it, but I wasn't expecting to have to do this in front of her. Like, it really kind of eats at him that he has to let her think of him this way. As far as how it compares to their previous interactions in the movie, I mean, it's, before he's using the suit as like a, as a literal shield again, but between him and the people he's interacting with, he's a lot more free to, you know, be Batman in that moment. But he's just so vulnerable when she sees him outside of this hotel. At least that's how it looked like he was playing it to
Yeah.
me. Like someone who's been caught doing something they're not supposed to. And he immediately starts trying to justify his actions or explain that there's more to him than this. And she's, of course not buying it. So that's really I really, that's another scene where just in the same scene, he just instantly switches between Bruce Wayne personas,
Yeah.
and you can tell when that switch happens. And it's just another instance to me of appreciating how great an actor he is and what he's doing in this role.
Yeah, his whole body language changes. Like,
Hmm.
he's totally playing that part, and then all of a sudden he gets like really embarrassed and goo-goo eyed, and there's a light that he has in his expressions, in his eyes, that was not present in the prior chapter when he was
Yeah.
playing Batman. And
Hmm.
it's such a weird thing to think that he's already seen her like several
Yeah.
times at this point. He's
Hmm.
talked to her once, but
Yeah.
now this is like unmasked, unfiltered, and just how like she doesn't bring him down, but like put him down, but like she connects him to like this really primal level that it makes sense where he winds up in the second movie, like his
Yeah.
feelings for her and how he gives everything up because of what effect she has on him.
I didn't think about this until talking about it with you just now. What, like, he had to have known that he was going to bump into her as Bruce
At
Wayne at
some
some
point,
point.
yeah.
Because before this, like you said, right before this, he had spoken to her as Batman. But even before that, he had been, in his drifter get
Surveilling her.
up, looking at her.
Yeah.
So he knew that he was going to bump into her. Do you think he had like some kind of pre-planned idea about how he wanted that to go, and this just kind of derailed it? Or was he just, you know just hoping that he could just put it off for as long as possible? Because it seems like that's kind of how it looks to me like he just like, oh, I really wasn't expecting to have to do this now.
Yeah.
But he doesn't even have a plan for what to do when it eventually was going to happen either.
I could see like comic book Batman, like having a plan, like this is when I'm going to see her and this is going to be the moment. And part of me is wondering then, like, yeah, what was his plan to ever like talk? Was he not going to talk to her again? He had to have wanted to talk to her at some point.
Yeah.
Was he waiting till he got to a certain point in his mission and then be like, hey, I fixed Gotham. Let's remember me. We used to be kids together, like what?
Mhm.
That's an interesting question. I haven't really thought about it too much either, but
You're probably onto something with he wanted to be further along in his mission first and then kind of have something to share. But that obviously wasn't, he wasn't ready for it at this point. Certainly not.
so we shift to Crane, who goes to visit Falcone in jail. First, I got to know, are you a Falcone or Falcone guy?
I think I like Falcone. That to me sounds more like old world Italian to like
Yeah.
pronounce the vowel at the end. Or even to emphasize like the Falcone, like that just to me sounds more like classic Italian gangster, but I didn't, hate the change in the Batman to switch it just to Falcone. I mean, that works too.
I mean,
But
that's how I always read it as a kid, was Falcone. And when they said it Falcone, I was like, oh. And then you get into the whole race, Raz, Al Ghul of it all too.
yeah. We can talk about that. I know how Diddy likes to say it, and I'll just go with what he says, but I do get the point, which I guess what Nolan's were going for, that if you ask an Arabic speaking person, they're probably going to lean more towards the Raz, pronunciation. But yeah, it's a movie. It's okay.
Yeah. Falcone is feigning insanity to talk to Crane and put some pressure on him. He wants in on whatever Crane and his boss are planning. Crane turns the tables on him by donning his scarecrow mask and spraying Falcone with fear gas. So as a comics fan, how did you like this first glimpse of the scarecrow in action?
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Because you didn't really, like if you think back to the Burton Schumacher movies, the villains are in real like colorful, elaborate get-ups, and Nolan, I forget, I think it was Goyer who talked him into at least having a scarecrow mask, if nothing else in this movie. So it's very like trimmed down and boiled down to its basics, but their use of the fear gas to show like what's going on in the mind of the person who's looking at him is just a really brilliant way to take it to that comic booky level, but still keep it pretty grounded. So I really like the way that they did this here. I was watching watching it with the commentary on, just to, getting ready for this. And they were talking about how they made several of these masks, and they did like a face cast for Cillian Murphy. And I'm like, I didn't know that they had to go in that depth with it, because it just looks like a burlap sack to me.
Yeah.
But that's how meticulous they were about every aspect of the production of this movie. So they certainly weren't doing anything without putting a lot of thought into it. And I think it works just really, really well, especially for, the kind of world they're setting up in these movies and the expectations we have for things that would show up in that world.
Were you disappointed that you didn't get more of like the traditional scarecrow look with like just sacks all around and rope tied around his wrists?
Well, no, because by the end he rides the horse, and he's got that a little bit more theatrical presentation to him. So I didn't feel like I had missed out on it. What I did notice though is I had kind of forgotten how, when he's on screen and when they're focusing on Scarecrow as the character, how much they lean into like kind of the horror vibes for this movie. And I'd kind of forgotten how far they went with it in some places. I don't know about you, Javi. I'm not a huge horror movie fan. I'm kind of a wimp when it comes to that stuff, but I can appreciate it when it's done really well. And to me, it seems like they peppered it in here just enough to really make him unsettling. And that's kind of the takeaway that they want you to have is this is a comic book. The hero is going to win, but this Scarecrow character is not to be underestimated.
And we also get one of our early examples in the trilogy of a villain speaking, and it's hard to understand what they're saying because there's so much going on with the music and the other sound effects and whatever distortion they do to bring that heightened reality that Falcone's experiencing. Where I was like,
well, and Falcone just screaming his head off,
his head off over whatever he's saying too. It's like, yeah, let me do the quick rewind and just make sure I didn't miss anything and put the captions on just for a second. So
and I watched it with captions this time too. Just getting to that stage of life, I guess, where I turned captions on for stuff, and some of the dialogue I was picking up on for the first time. I was like, oh, okay, this was pretty tightly written and well constructed.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to put a quick pin in our conversation for these messages from our sponsors. So later that night, Batman surprises Gordon at home when he goes to take out the trash. And I love how Batman is crouching there on the railing as they share what they know with each other at this point. And Batman disappears on Gordon midway through, which is, it's just a comic staple at this point. And leading into that scene, like there's this great shot of the city and there's storms in the distance and you see Batman once again, like perched atop a building. And Bill and I talked about this, I think last episode, or maybe it was on our chapter by chapter for 89, or maybe it was both. Do you have a preference? Like, do you like Batman filmed in a practical cityscape like we get in this trilogy? Or do you like him being atop like a designed city on a sound stage with like heightened and unique architecture?
So I like how in this movie, the city feels bigger than what you see. And you can get that from a set, but it feels more natural to get it on location. Like a combination of sets and locations, I guess, is probably what's worked the best. Because if you think about in The Dark Knight and then in Rises, we don't ever go back to the Narrows in either of those movies. Not that I can remember.
Nothing's ringing to mind for me.
But the Narrows is really what is distinctively Gotham in this movie. Or that's the place. Like you get the wide shots of like the city, the cityscape and to see the whole thing in frame. But just as far as like when you're moving around in the city, it's in the Narrows, and that's where they do a really good job of making it feel like this place goes on. There's like several other blocks that I could walk down and explore here. So it's like this whole urban jungle that Batman is navigating through. So I guess to compare that with like previous iterations, I think it was done the best in 89. If you're only talking about the Burton Schumacher movies, like the 89 movie did a really good job of making it feel like a kind of place where a guy would dress up like a bat and fight a guy dressed up like a clown. But in this one, it's, like I said, it just feels like I could go find this place if I were to just drive, and it exists out there somewhere. And it's the kind of place that would lend itself to corruption and criminals and people being scared for their lives. It's the kind of place that would need someone like Batman. So as far as a preference, I think I like the approach of some sets, but then making sure that you ground that in some on-site location work as well. I think they put those together in Begins really well.
Or like the Batman, where it did have its.
The Batman, I think, did a phenomenal job. It looks even a little bit more exaggerated and gothic than it did, in the Nolan trilogy. Like, I'm thinking even of like Bruce's penthouse. There's like,
oh yeah, for sure,
archways and decor that just seems like not the kind of thing someone would have in their house, but it just suits that world really well. And then everyone's, there's skylights everywhere. I do love how it seems like Reeves was really influenced by the animated series with some of his, set design. So I hope we see more of that in part 2 and beyond. But yeah, I think the Batman did it really well. Here, like I said, it feels like a place that you can go explore and probably want to keep your hands on your wallet if you do.
I mean, I definitely love that age of 1989 to, I mean, we'll just say 97, because that during that decade of Batman, starting with that movie, you have like these Art Deco buildings, and that continued into the animated series, and then it morphed into the following 3 movies. But like, it had this otherworldly sense, and it had a sense of cool about it, and just design. Like, you wish you could see that kind of design in the real world. But then having this movie, and you get these massive shots where the city just spreads out, and it's, for the most part, it's all real. And that just gives like a different weight to it, having that, like you said, those tangible places. So I don't really feel like I have a preference. I just love them both, and I love them both for different reasons. And I just kind of go back and forth between the two. I mean, there was definitely a time where I was just like, oh wow, 89, it's the same 3 sets over and over again.
Yeah.
But it's like, those sets are so good though, and so unique and so influential that they had to bring some of those design elements into the comics, before the earthquake took them all down for the most part.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I don't want to jump ahead of you, but this scene coming up right after this where it's raining.
Yeah.
So Batman Begins, the set design was famously inspired by Blade Runner. And this scene coming up, especially, maybe it's mainly because of the rain, is where I kind of got that influence, where it seemed the most obvious to me. Maybe you can speak more to that, but that's where I'm like, okay, I can really see where they're leaning into that here.
Yeah, I definitely point out the rain in the upcoming notes here.
Yeah.
Such as in the next scene, Batman goes to interrogate Flash, hoisting him high up and dangling him upside down in a rain-soaked alley.
Mm-hmm.
And we get this chapter's title from this scene, obviously.
Yeah.
So what were your impressions of Bale's Batman voice back in 2005? And what do you think of it for only this movie, specifically from like a 2025 perspective?
So I really had no issue with it for this movie. It kind of went a little bit off the rails in Dark Knight and Rises, especially the more dialogue they gave him when he's in costume. But for this movie, I never had any trouble like understanding him, and it seems less like a growl and more like just a threatening whisper, if that makes sense. I thought I don't understand why they just didn't stick with that, and just take that forward into the next 2.
Yeah, I really like it in this movie, and you get a lot of examples of it in the corresponding video game.
Yeah.
And as you know, we've watched these over and over throughout the years, and definitely people make fun of the Batman voice, especially like those college humor videos that came out in like the early
Yeah.
2010s.
Yeah.
And I kind of wonder because, he gets the costume change. And when he goes to the newer suit in the Dark Knight, the mouth area is a
Mhm.
lot smaller and more of
Yeah.
like a Tim Sale looking
Mhm.
mouth. And I wonder if there's anything about that restricted his movement in his face and that maybe altered the voice. Or if it was just, this is how I'm doing the voice now
I
kind of
hadn't
thing.
I hadn't thought of that, but I could see that. Um, and when I see people like make fun of his voice in the trilogy, and
Mhm.
they go back as far even into this movie for examples, I kind of don't believe them because I'm like, nobody had a problem with the voice in Begins. It was
No.
only in The Dark Knight and Rises that kind of took off and became a thing. But you're right. I hadn't thought about the costume change being part of why the voice changed. That would make sense. Um, it's one of the things I actually really did appreciate about BVS is they showed like an actual justification for how his voice could sound so different and like not quite human while he's in the
Yeah.
suit. So I thought that was a good take on it. But as far as just this movie's concerned, I had no issue with his voice, and I thought he did a fantastic job. It's kind of like I said, he talks more in the suit than Keaton ever did, but it kind of seems like he's taken the same approach. Like his voice gets lower and quieter, where it's more of a whisper, but there's definitely like an aura or a threatening aura behind it. And I thought it really worked.
Yeah, no, I love this scene. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
The DA Finch goes to the docks to examine a mysterious crate that was added during transit, despite being told by Port Authority he doesn't want to know what's in Mr. Falcone's crate. This gets him killed when he sees the microwave emitter, leaving a job opening that someone can fill down the road. Were you looking at this as an opportunity for Harvey Dent to be added later?
Not in this scene, but once the movie ends and it's clear that he's actually dead and Gotham is without a DA, it's like, oh, well, I know where they're going with this. But yeah, at this point in the movie, I don't think I was like, it's not like I was sitting there expecting like, oh, now Harvey Dent's going to show up. It was just,
Yeah.
oh, this guy's been digging too much and he's in for it, and Rachel's probably next. So, but no, the Harvey Dent thing didn't really. That didn't occur to me until after I'd seen the whole thing and seen that, oh, they didn't say who the new DA is going to be, so we know who it's going to be if you're a fan of the comics and
Yeah.
other Batman media.
And at this point, the film cuts to the aforementioned Narrows in a cityscape that gets reused on Arrow for the Glades, which is the Arrowverse version of
Mhm.
the Narrows.
Yeah.
And it's still raining, and Batman is using a surveillance gadget to see what's going on with the shipment. And this little boy sees Batman and says the other kids won't believe him. So Batman tosses him the equipment. And, of course, the kid's going to show up, later. But what do you think of Batman just getting rid of this, high tech equipment like that? Is it responsible? I mean, he probably isn't worried about the money, but
Yeah.
is it really proof that he met Batman?
I so I did kind of wonder. I was like, man, what happens if someone gets a hold of that and cracks it open and finds Wayne Enterprises logo somewhere in there?
Yeah.
Or I guess he would know for sure that there wasn't one, but someone who was paying close enough attention might be able to put together like where this thing came from, or narrow it down to some places where it could have come from. As far as like whether the other kids are going to believe him based on that, I'd never actually thought about that. I always just felt bad for the kid, and I didn't. I remember, from watching the movie, through the years, that the kid comes outside and there's, a lot of yelling in the background. But I had forgotten that the yelling wasn't just in the Narrows. The yelling was
It was
actually
like
his
his
mom and
house,
dad
his
fighting.
apartment.
And
Yeah.
and it's I forget which one says which, but one of them is yelling at him to come back, inside, because I guess they're about to, yell at him some more inside. And the other one is like, no, quit yelling. So he's obviously, aside from living in the Narrows, he's not in a good situation, even in his own house. And I always felt really bad for this kid, especially, not to jump ahead, but later on when, the fear gas is like everywhere and Rachel is trying to protect him and he's just like terrified because, he's
Yeah.
thinking they're about to die. Like, oh man, I'm I guess it's I don't do well when kids are in danger. I just don't do well like seeing that in media. It's always pretty tough for me. But I did want to ask you about this though. I remember when Rises was coming out. I don't remember how much traction this got, but I do remember seeing this. There was speculation that the Joseph Gordon-Levitt character was actually going to be this kid. Did
Oh,
you ever
really?
see that, or did I? I don't think I imagined that, but I don't know how much traction that rumor ever got online.
I don't remember that per se, but that sounds like a theory someone would have come up with back then. So I
Yeah.
was gonna say, like, this scene, like, we know we'll see him again later in the movie, but like Batman gives him this periscope, thermo, whatever device. It's not bat branded.
Yeah.
So there's no proof that like this is from Batman. It could just be like, I don't know, I met some Navy SEAL or something,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it's not a batarang, which to me would be like, you don't want to give a kid a deadly weapon because these ones look really sharp, but like you at least would know, oh, a batarang, that it's a bat shape, must be that Batman guy we're hearing about.
Yeah.
But just the fact that we don't get a payoff for the device, like we don't see him showing it to kids to later on to be like,
Mhm.
look, I met Batman. And the device itself doesn't help him and Rachel later in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it seems like there should have been something for that.
Hmm.
And maybe there was and it got cut. I don't know. But pulling into, that thing you heard, like I could see why people would have thought that or theorized that at some point,
I think that was part of the early speculation was like, oh, he figured out who Batman is based on this interaction right here.
like a Tim Drake. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, that's kind of what we got in the movie
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah.
was like a Tim Drake scenario.
Right. Um, yeah, I hadn't thought about the fact that it seems like this little exchange is kind of a narrative dead end. I mean, it's not a character arc dead end because the kid comes
Yeah.
back and the kid is kind of like a stand-in for, the rest of Gotham City at this point. They're not really sure what to make of him, but they see him in action and, they feel like safe when he's there. I did kind of wonder, ultimately, Nolan did include a Robin, but I'd wondered if, back before any of that was, you know, was fleshed out, if maybe this was like his early version of a nod to Robin,
Yeah, it could be.
because it's, the kid doesn't actually like help him at all, but he definitely seems interested in, what he's doing and supporting him somehow, if nothing else, just like by telling other people that he's a hero and that he can be trusted. So I did wonder that, like, even, before seeing The Dark Knight and seeing Rises, I'm like, that might have been kind of what Nolan was thinking here. Not to go full on like this is going to be Robin, but just to like include that for fans who were would be looking for something like that and would be especially interested by the fact that there's a younger ally character, in the scene with
Yeah.
Batman. So,
And while we know now, that as well crafted as we spoke about earlier, this is a trilogy. It was by no means like he started this movie with a picture of what all 3 chapters were going to look like.
yeah.
So it could have very well been like planning some groundwork and then decided they didn't want to go in this direction later on. I could see that happening too. Batman goes inside the apartment to investigate further and finds what's inside the stuffed animals, and then Crane and his men arrive to torch the whole place. How does this scene compare to the earlier scene at the docks for you in terms of how Nolan films Batman? And since you just said you don't like horror movies that much, how did you take this scene when you first saw it?
I can appreciate what horror movies are trying to do. It's just I don't always enjoy what they're trying to do, but I can definitely say they're doing a good job of it. In this scene, he does a really good job of they first walk in and Batman is like kind of crouching in the background and you see his silhouette. So
Yes.
that's a great way to show the audience where he is, but you would totally buy the characters in the scene not knowing where he is. And that's, to be expected with all the training that he got, at the beginning. So I thought that it was set up and lit really, really well. It wasn't so dark that you couldn't tell what was going on, but it was staged just the right way where I totally believe that these guys have no idea that he's there. Like that's totally believable. So compared with the docks, I mean, the docks was, obviously the grand entrance. So there's a lot more spectacle to that scene. This one, and this kind of can get into a larger conversation about something I really appreciate about this movie. But what you got to remember is this scene is leading up to Batman being defeated by Scarecrow. So there's not as much of that like awesome, he's coming out of nowhere, taking out like a dozen guys like there is at the docks. He does take out these 2 guys, but the difference in this scene is that there's someone else here who knows how to use fear and is going to turn that against him. So, and that really wasn't the case at the docks. So I think that not only is it staged really well where you buy that Batman is able to take these guys out, but it's also this really tense, uneasy feel to the scene where it's not shocking that this is actually going to be a defeat for Batman that he has to go through.
It's funny because he's using, very similar techniques to the dock scene.
Mm-hmm.
And it's continuing that he's the killer in the horror movie, hiding behind the unsuspecting teenagers, but it's lacking that buildup of fear in the people he's stalking.
Mm-hmm.
This is much more like Arkham Asylum stealth mode Batman, where you're going through the map and taking people out as quiet as you can.
Yeah.
And then, you make one mistake and you get caught, and then the villain's standing over you. And that's pretty much what happens. We get our first Batman Scarecrow face off on the big screen. And it's a really quick encounter with Scarecrow incapacitating Batman with fear gas and then lighting him on fire, forcing the Dark Knight to escape and call for Alfred. So talk to me about how effective the flashback nightmares were in this scene as Bruce is dealing with the effects.
They were perfectly used because that's what he's going through. Is Scarecrow is bringing his repressed fears right to the surface. And what is the most traumatic thing he's ever been through? It's when his parents die, it's when he's in the well, and that all comes just rushing to the surface. And he had learned to deal with that in a less intense, or a less intense version of that, with the League. But like you said, with Scarecrow's thing, it's way more concentrated. It's way more
Yeah.
powerful. He wasn't, none of his training could have gotten him ready for that. So the use of the flashbacks, I think, really drove home that this is not just a minor setback for him. This is like he's staring down the barrel of something that's much bigger than just taking out the mob and Falcone, which is all he's really been worried about up to this point.
I love that visual of the Scarecrow's mask
Yeah.
and that bat just like coming out of
Coming
his
out of the
mouth.
mouth. Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
so good.
And it's like I said, it's such a perfect way to include that from the perspective of the person uh, under the effects of the fear gas
Yeah.
is such a great way to get really theatrical and comic booky, but still in a really grounded movie. Like Nolan makes it clear that this is a hallucination, but it's still a very powerful one. So it's kind of like he gets to have his cake and eat it too. Like there's not,
Yeah.
he doesn't have to have this Scarecrow with this very dramatic, like, you know, horrifying presence on the screen through a costume and through a bunch of, get-ups. Like he just uses fear gas and then the audience experiences the effects of that. I think that was a really smart way to do it. And you always had to wonder, like, if they ever did make Scarecrow a villain, like how much would they dive into what it's like to be attacked by him and how awful that must be? Because I remember even in the animated series, they would kind of they kind of leaned into that even for just a cartoon. There's some really striking imagery in some of those episodes, and they're not, if you're, having little kids now, I have to be, a little bit mindful of which episodes they're going to get to watch. So to see like how they decided to handle that in this movie, I thought they struck a really, really great balance. And another reason to love this movie and love this trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really fine tightrope that you've got to
Mhm.
walk and how you're going to depict it. And I think they really sell like the comic bookiness of it without taking you out of the movie or breaking any of the verisimilitude that they're trying to, engender to the film. And I
Yeah.
just, as he, or I should say his stunt man, falls out and does all those hard falls. And it's not
Oh,
like,
that was rough to watch.
yeah, it's not like later when we see him fall and he's using the cape to kind of glide and break his fall. Like
Mhm.
they're hard hits.
Yeah.
And the look on Alfred's face, like it just sells it all.
Yeah. This and this kind of speaks to how well structured this movie is, that it happens at this point of the movie, because he faces three villains in this movie. He faces Falcone, then Scarecrow, and then Roz. And it's almost kind of layered like video game bosses.
Yeah.
Like he faces off Falcone. It's like this moment of triumph because everything goes the way he wants it to go. But then he goes up against Scarecrow and it doesn't. And the reason it doesn't, to I, I I mean, you could talk about like just what actually happens in the scene, but I think what we as the audience are supposed to pick up on is the reason it doesn't is because Falcone kind of sort of knows how to use fear, but Scarecrow is way more of an expert at it. So Batman is like meeting someone who's using that same weapon that he's decided to use, and it's not going well. And that's
Yeah.
kind of foreboding, knowing what's coming later and who he's going to face later and how much of an expert he is in using fear, and why it's such a struggle where for Batman where it wasn't a struggle, like to take out Falcone and the mob at the docks.
Yeah. Breaking it down like this, it's just like getting into the minutia of just how well it's crafted and all these little
Oh man,
moments. Like
yeah. No,
there's
you could talk about this, and people. It's 20 years old. People have,
yeah,
but this was this. It's very apparent that this was very well thought out at the scripting stage, where they had very solid ideas about who these characters are and how they come into conflict and why they come into conflict. And even, Batman faces three of those villains. He also picks up three allies in this movie, and each ally
yeah,
kind of corresponds to like the stretch of the movie where he's dealing with Falcone and taking him down. The featured ally there is Lucius. But then once he moves on to Scarecrow, which we've seen here, the featured ally kind of becomes Gordon. So the stakes are higher. He has to move to an ally who's going in even a little bit deeper with him. And then the ultimate ally that has to help him through the actual like climax of the movie is Alfred when he's facing off with Roz. So it just is, to me, it's so cool to see how much thought and detail the Nolans and Dave Goyer put into this, and how it all shows up in the final product. It's just, they did such a great job.
and I think that is a great place to leave this chapter at. So thank you for coming on, Trey. Where can people find you?
Well, I'm on BOF. Like you said, current thing I'm reviewing is issues of Dark Patterns, which if you haven't picked that up, pick it up. It's real easy to get into. One of the best Batman books out there right now. Other than that, you can find me in the BOF Facebook group. I'm on X, formerly known as Twitter. It's Trey Jackson 619. But yeah, just look me up, and if you want to chat Begins or Batman in general, always happy to do that.
And just like one more plug for Dark Patterns, like that was when they showed those previews. I'm like, I really like this art. And then I saw who wrote it, and I was like, oh, it's Waters. Like, I did not like those backups he did in Detective.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then so I waited, and then read that first issue. I'm like, oh man, like I got to keep going. Like this is really good. So
yeah. So plug the Batman book club. They kind of went through the same thing, and they described that in their monthly wrap ups. Like, I did not expect anything from this guy, and this is knocking it out of the park. So, yeah,
I think we're in a good spot as Batman fans right now. I mean, obviously Pete and Lauer feel differently about some of the main books, but
yeah.
For me, like the side books, the main books, like everything is just on fire right now. So
yeah, there's definitely a lot of good stuff to choose from. Like even if there's some stuff you just don't care for, there's still plenty to balance that out. I think so. And I mean, I'm biased, but Dark Patterns is kind of up there at the top for me. I asked Bill about reviewing that, not even knowing how good it was going to be. That was a very pleasant surprise. It was more a case of like, I need to be writing something for the site. I gotta contribute. And yeah, I'm fortunate to pick something as good as that was. So.
No, that for me is definitely going to be one of those ones that I'm going to add to my bookshelf whenever they do a deluxe or a hardcover. I definitely want to have that to revisit it again and again. So
that hardcover is a day one purchase. I just want to hold the art in my hands because it's just so good. Like just the layouts and like the panel, the way the panels are structured. It's just really, really creative and well done.
As for myself, you can obviously find me on batman-on-film.com, where we're doing the chapter by chapter series for Batman Begins, the occasional Batman animation when we can find the time. Bill's got the social hour, and I've got written reviews for Batman and Robin Year One, The Batman Second Night just came out this month. And eventually I'll finish reviewing Gargoyle of Gotham whenever we get that final issue. So
yeah.
Have you read that book at all?
No.
Gargoyle of Gotham?
It's one of those where if there's like several,
it's so beautiful.
If there's like such a long time between issues, I'm just like, okay, well, just let me know when the whole thing comes out and I'll read the whole thing. But yeah.
Kind of like Batman 89.
Yeah.
Whatever both series have been plagued by delays, so some of that can be helped.
Yeah, that's one where I just had kind of forgotten what happened, to be honest.
Yeah.
It had been so long between issues. So, yeah. Wait till they're all, collected and then read them through. Because if that's how they're meant to be presented, then I want to give the creators that leeway.
Benefit.
Yeah. Like, it's going to work better when you're sitting down reading through the whole thing.
Cool. Well, thank you again, Trey, for being on. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed our conversation. And we're going to have announcer Rachel take us out.
You have been listening to Batman on Film Chapter by Chapter, a BatmanOnFilm.com podcast revisiting the cinematic adventures of the Dark Knight, scene by scene, chapter by chapter. Follow Jet on Twitter at Batman on Film. For BOF news only, follow at the Batman on Film on Twitter. To become a BOF patron, go to patreon.com/Batman on Film. To advertise on BOF, visit advertisecast.com/Batman on Film. For Jet and Team BOF, I'm announcer Rachel. Authoritative, definitive, the original. Batman on Film. Established in 1998.
Rolling through the night, we're on a quest, searching for the truth. That man's the best. Every flick, every tale, to keep it alive. From Gotham's dark streets to where legends spy. Heroes rise, villains fall, keep the flame caught. For Batman on Film, know we got. You better tune in. Trying to fight, shining the light like a dark night. Headlines that inspire. Whoa, doing on fire. It's not a universe, we break it down. From movies to comics, we're wearing that crown. Suit up with passion, we cover it all. Keeping you informed, we won't